Good evening and welcome. Tonight, let your thoughts drift far from the noise of the day. We're going to travel somewhere distant and quiet, across frozen seas, beneath a dim northern sky, to uncover why the Viking colonies in Greenland simply disappeared. As you listen, you may feel your breathing slow, the crackle of the campfire behind the voice, the soft rhythm of history itself. It's all here to help you relax, to help your mind grow still. Where are you listening from tonight? Is it cold or warm where you are? What time is it there? The deep calm of midnight, or the fading light of evening? Before we begin our journey into the icy past, if you enjoy gentle stories like this one, you can press the like button or subscribe. No rush. You can do it later, once your eyes grow heavy and sleep begins to find you. Now, close your eyes if you'd like. Picture a world 1,000 years ago. A world of wind, waves, and wooden ships. The air smells of salt and snow. The ocean stretches endlessly ahead, grey and patient. A fleet of Viking longships moves across it, their sails filled with a cold wind from the east. They are leaving behind Iceland, chasing the promise of new land, Greenland. The year is around 985. They have heard stories of a place across the sea, a land where grass might grow and cattle might graze. They believe they can start anew. They build homes, raise families, live simply. But what they do not know yet is that this land will test every part of their strength. As you breathe in slowly, imagine standing on one of those ships. The deck creaks beneath your feet. The sea spray is cold against your face. All around you is silence, just the sound of waves and distant seabirds. The horizon glows faintly, a strip of silver light beneath endless clouds. After days at sea, they spot land. Jagged cliffs rise from the fog, streaked with ice and dark stone. This is Greenland, their new home. They name it green, perhaps out of hope, perhaps as an invitation for others to join them. But it is mostly grey and white, a hard, quiet beauty. Take another slow breath. Let the sound of the fire remind you that you are safe here, warm, far from the cold they once faced. This story isn't a tale of glory or conquest. It's a quiet journey into endurance. A reminder that even in the harshest places, people once tried to make a home. The settlers build their first shelters from stone and turf, packed thick with earth to hold out the wind. Inside, it smells of hay and wood smoke. They light small fires to warm the air and hang fish to dry for the months ahead. Outside, the landscape stretches silent mountains, ice, and sea. During the short summer, they work endlessly. They cut grass for hay, herd their sheep and cattle, and gather driftwood washed in from distant shores. The sun stays long in the sky, a gift before the darkness of winter returns. Every task is simple, but every moment counts. The colony begins to take shape. A few dozen farms scattered across the fjords. Families living side by side, depending on one another to survive. Their lives are slow, repetitive, yet strangely peaceful. As you listen, maybe you can feel a sense of that calm, the rhythm of a life guided by season and survival. Every so often, ships arrive from Iceland, bringing wood, tools, and news. The settlers trade ivory, furs, and hides in return. But those visits are rare, and the sea is never kind. Storms swallow ships, and the ocean keeps its secrets. Out here, the settlers are on the very edge of the known world. Take a deep breath, and let your thoughts settle like falling snow. If your mind begins to wander, that's perfectly fine. You can always come back to the sound of the voice, or the gentle fire in the background. This is your time to rest and to drift with the story. In the next moments, we'll move deeper into their world, to the heart of their daily lives, their hopes, and the long winters that would slowly change everything. But for now, stay in this moment, quiet, steady, calm. Let history itself become a lullaby. The first winter arrives sooner than they expected. The fjords freeze, and snow covers the roofs until the houses look like small mounds of earth. Inside, the air is thick with smoke from the fire, and the sound of the wind never truly stops. Still, there is warmth, not from comfort, but from endurance. The families gather close, sharing quiet meals and long silences. Outside, the night lasts for months. Time moves slowly here, almost as if the world itself has fallen asleep. In those long nights, they tell simple stories, not of battles or heroes, but of fishing trips, lost tools, and stubborn animals. Life is reduced to the small and the necessary. It's peaceful in a way, yet heavy too. The only light comes from the fire and the faint shimmer of the northern sky beyond the small window. When the sun finally rises again, weak and distant, it feels like a blessing. The ice begins to crack, and the air smells of salt and thawing earth. The settlers step outside, blinking against the light, and begin again. They repair fences, tend to their animals, and thank the Creator who allows them another season to survive. As the seasons turn, they learn to read the land, when to fish, when to harvest, when to stay inside and wait. Every choice matters. They know the sea gives and the sea takes. They live between those truths with quiet acceptance. From afar, it might seem like a lonely life, but for them, it's simply life, one built on patience, rhythm, and trust in what little the land can offer. Each year, new children are born. Each year, old ones pass. The settlement becomes a small world of its own, hidden beneath the northern sky. Take another deep breath. Let the sound of the fire remind you that you're safe, and that history doesn't always move fast. Sometimes it lingers like snow that refuses to melt. You're doing well. Stay with the story, but if your eyelids grow heavy, you can let them close. As the years pass, the settlers look toward the horizon less and less. Few ships arrive now, and even fewer leave. The ocean seems larger than before, the winds colder, but life continues. They adapt, they endure, and they dream of green summers that might one day return. The children play in the meadows near the fjord, chasing each other between the rocks. Their laughter echoes softly against the cliffs. For a moment, even this harsh land feels alive again, as if hope still lives quietly beneath the snow. When night falls, the world goes silent once more. The stars appear, countless and cold. Inside the homes, the fires glow low. Someone hums a simple tune, something passed down from faraway shores. Outside, the wind carries it away into the dark, and as you listen, perhaps you feel that same stillness, that quiet rhythm of a world long gone, yet somehow close enough to touch. The Viking settlers of Greenland had no way of knowing what awaited them. But in this moment of peace, under that endless sky, their story had only just begun. Rest now. The sea is calm, and the night is long. Summer in Greenland is brief, but when it comes, it feels like a gift. The ice loosens its hold, rivers begin to flow again, and the settlers step out into a world that almost feels alive. Grass pushes through the melting snow, the fjords glimmer under pale sunlight, and for a few short months, life feels gentle. The settlers work without pause, storing every bit of food and warmth they can for the long cold that always follows. The air is filled with the quiet sounds of daily life, the soft bleating of sheep, the creak of wooden fences, the steady rhythm of tools shaping the earth. Families move slowly, their routines guided by the weather and the turning of the light. There are no crowds here, no rush, only the slow heartbeat of survival, one season at a time. They build with what they have: stone, turf, and driftwood gathered from distant shores. Each wall is packed with care, thick enough to withstand the winter wind. Inside, homes are simple: one room, low ceilings, and a hearth that burns almost all year. The fire's smoke stains the walls dark, and its warmth fills every corner. It is not comfort as we know it, but it is enough. At night, the sound of the sea seeps into their dreams. Waves roll against the rocks, calm and endless. Outside, seals rest on the ice, and seabirds drift across the sky. The settlers learn the patterns of these creatures when they feed, where they rest, because knowing such things means staying alive. Every part of this world is both an obstacle and a teacher. There is a strange beauty in their isolation. No roads, no noise, no letters from faraway places, just families, fire, and faith that the morning will come. They rise with the light and sleep when darkness takes over. It is a life that makes time itself feel slower, almost circular, like the passing of the seasons. Sometimes, when the air is still, they can hear distant cracks echoing from the glaciers, deep, rolling sounds like the voice of the earth. They pause and listen, aware of how small they are in this vast, frozen place. Yet, there's no fear, only quiet acceptance. This land is not theirs to conquer. It's theirs to respect, to endure, to understand. The settlers plant small patches of barley, though few seeds ever grow strong. The soil is thin, and frost lingers, even in summer. Still, they try again each year. Hope is as much a part of their harvest as the grain itself. It's a quiet hope, the kind that doesn't shout, but breathes softly through routine and prayer. When storms rise over the ocean, they bring in their animals and secure the doors. The wind howls through the fjord like a living thing, testing every wall, rattling every thought. But inside, the families stay close, the glow of the fire flickering on their faces. They have learned to find peace even in the noise of the storm. Take a deep breath and imagine the stillness that follows when the wind finally fades. The air outside is cold and clear, stars scattered above the dark sea. Somewhere far beyond the horizon, the rest of the world continues, but here, time feels suspended. In the soft, quiet, life feels both fragile and infinite. This was life on the edge of the world, simple, uncertain, yet filled with meaning. Each day was a story of endurance, written in silence and patience. And though the settlers could not know it, their peaceful rhythm would one day meet the slow arrival of change, a colder wind, a longer night, and a history that would begin to fade like breath against glass. As the years passed, life in Greenland found its rhythm. The settlers had learned what to expect from the land when the ice would melt, when the storms would return, and when the sea might offer its gifts. Children grew up never knowing the world their parents had left behind. To them, the rocky fjords and endless ice were home. They played by the shore, chasing seabirds and gathering shells, while their parents worked quietly nearby. Trade ships from Iceland and beyond still arrived, though less often now. When the sails appeared on the horizon, it was cause for celebration. The settlers would rush to the shore, bringing furs, wool, and ivory to exchange for timber, iron, and salt. News came with the sailors, 2 stories of kings, wars, and strange lands to the east. But the Greenlanders listened with a kind of distance. Those tales belonged to another world, far from the rhythm of their own. Each visit was a reminder that they were not completely forgotten. Yet, when the ships departed again, the vast silence returned. Months would pass with only the whisper of the wind and the slow creak of the sea ice forming once more. Still, there was peace in that quiet, a comfort in knowing that their lives, though small, were steady. Take a slow breath and imagine that silence, the sound of snow falling on stone, the steady crackle of a hearth fire, the rhythm of waves against ice. In that stillness, the settlers found a kind of calm most people never experience. Theirs was a life stripped of noise, of urgency, of distraction. There was only what was necessary: warmth, food, and faith that tomorrow would come. But nature, as always, was unpredictable. Some years brought generous summers, when grass grew thick and the animals thrived. Other years, the sun seemed weaker, the growing season shorter. The settlers noticed these small changes but accepted them as part of life. The idea of leaving never crossed their minds. Their roots were deep, even in frozen ground. In the evenings, when work was done, families would gather around the fire. The soft light flickered against the walls, and voices spoke low and steady. They shared stories of fishing and herding, of small victories and simple joys. Someone might hum a tune, carried from across generations, its meaning half forgotten but still comforting. Outside, the night stretched endlessly, but inside, warmth and togetherness made the world feel small again. Sometimes, travelers from distant lands stayed through the winter, unable to sail home before the sea froze. They brought with them bits of knowledge, new tools, and memories of places the Greenlanders had never seen. Those evenings, the settlement felt alive. Laughter mingled with the fire's crackle. And for a while, even the cold seemed softer. When spring returned, the settlers stepped outside once more to find the world renewing itself. The sea ice cracked and drifted away. Seals returned to the bays, and birds filled the sky. The settlers worked in silence, guided by habit and hope. There was something almost sacred in their patience, an understanding that every task, no matter how small, was part of their survival. Take another breath, slow and easy. Imagine standing there, looking across the water, where mist curls above the waves, and the air feels sharp but clean. The world is quiet, untouched, vast, and eternal in its rhythm. It's the kind of quiet that makes you feel both small and deeply at peace. This was life at the edge of the world. No grand battles, no heroes carved in stone. Just families living in the fragile balance between land and sea, warmth and ice, hope and endurance. Their story would continue for generations until the cold began to deepen, and the calm they had built would slowly begin to fade into silence once more. Winter returns with a quiet power that no one can ignore. The days grow shorter until the sun seems to rise only to disappear again. The sea, once alive with gentle waves, begins to freeze, sealing the settlers inside their world of ice. The sound of wind fills the empty spaces between mountains, carrying snow across the land like drifting smoke. Inside the small stone houses, people move softly, conserving every bit of heat and energy they can. The fire becomes the heart of every home. Its glow flickers against the rough walls, painting faces in gold and shadow. Around it, families gather, mending clothes, sharing small meals, and listening to the wind outside. There are no feasts, no celebrations, only the quiet rhythm of survival. Each spark of the fire feels precious, each moment of warmth a reminder that life continues, even when the world outside feels frozen in time. When the storms grow stronger, the sound can be overwhelming. The walls shake, the roof creaks, and the air hums with the deep voice of the wind. Yet, through it all, there is calm. They've lived through this before, and they will again. The settlers have learned to listen to the storm, to the silence, and to each other. Every noise is a message from the land itself, and they have grown fluent in its language. Take a breath and imagine that sound. The steady howl of wind, the slow crack of ice, the soft murmur of the sea beneath it all. It is not frightening, it's strangely peaceful, a reminder that nature moves on its own rhythm. For the settlers, this rhythm is their companion. It guides their sleep, their work, their patience. As the cold deepens, supplies grow scarce. Every meal is counted carefully. Dried fish, stored grain, and whatever meat remains from the summer hunts are rationed with care. Water comes from melted snow, collected in wooden buckets. The cattle are kept inside small shelters, their breath rising in soft clouds, warming the air just enough to hold off the frost. The nights stretch endlessly. Sometimes it feels as though morning will never come. Yet the settlers endure, their thoughts quiet, their spirits anchored in routine. They mend tools, polish what little metal they have, and whisper small hopes to each other as the fire burns low. There is no fear of the dark, only respect for its power and for the patience it demands. When the storms pass, the silence that follows is almost sacred. The snow outside glows faintly under the light of the moon, smooth and untouched. The sky above is alive with faint ribbons of green, the northern lights dancing quietly across the night. Even after all this time, the settlers pause to watch, their breath misting in the cold air. In this quiet beauty, they find strength. Days and nights blur together. Sleep becomes a rhythm of its own light, broken but peaceful. The world outside may be frozen, but inside their homes, time feels softer. Every crack of the fire, every sigh of the wind, becomes part of the lullaby of their existence. Take another slow breath. Let the image of that small, flickering fire settle in your mind. Imagine its warmth against the cold air, the slow movement of shadows on the walls. You are safe here, surrounded by quiet, listening to the story of people who once faced the cold with courage and calm. Soon, the ice will begin to melt again. The rivers will wake, the birds will return, and life will continue. But for now, this is winter, silent, patient, and still. It holds them in its arms like a long, slow breath, waiting for the world to turn once more. As the months pass, the settlers grow used to the dim light and constant cold. Winter has a rhythm of its own, predictable, steady, and strangely peaceful. Every day feels the same, tending the fire, feeding the animals, waiting for the light to return. The mind learns to move slowly here. The smallest sounds, the crack of ice outside, the quiet breath of an animal sleeping, begin to feel like company. Sometimes, a storm will rise suddenly, turning the air white with snow. The wind presses against the doors, howling through the cracks like a living voice. Inside, the settlers pause their work and listen. They don't speak much during these moments. Words feel unnecessary when nature speaks so loudly. The only response is patience. They've learned that the storm always ends, and silence always returns. There are nights when the sky clears, and the stars shine brighter than they do anywhere else on Earth. The air is so still that sound seems to travel forever. If you stood there, you might hear the faint shift of sea ice miles away. The settlers sometimes step outside to look up, wrapped in layers of fur and wool. The night sky reminds them that the world is vast, and that they are small, yet not forgotten. Inside, life continues in small, tender ways. Someone might carve a new spoon from driftwood. Another repairs a broken shoe. The children help where they can, laughing softly, finding joy in little things, the shapes in the frost, the warmth of the fire, the rhythm of their parents' voices. Even in this frozen place, love and care still flow quietly, like water under ice. Take a moment to breathe, slowly and deeply. Feel the calm that comes from repetition, the peace in knowing exactly what to do next. That's what the settlers felt too. There was no rush, no endless noise, no distractions from faraway places. Just the slow comfort of doing what must be done. By late winter, the food stores run low. The settlers know how to stretch what remains: a handful of dried meat, a piece of hard bread, melted snow to drink. They don't complain. Hunger has become part of their lives, something endured, not feared. They have faith that spring will return, just as it always has. The sea remains frozen, but sometimes they hear a deep, echoing sound from beneath the ice, the ocean shifting, alive even when unseen. It reminds them that life continues beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to rise again. That sound carries a strange comfort, a reminder that the world is never truly still. As the sun begins to climb higher each day, the settlers feel change in the air. The walls glisten with melting frost, and drops of water fall softly to the floor. It's a quiet signal that the hardest months are nearly over. Spirits lift, not with excitement, but with quiet gratitude. They have survived another winter, and that is enough. When the first patch of bare ground appears, they step outside to touch it. The soil is cold and rough beneath their hands, but to them it feels alive. The air smells different, less of smoke, more of earth. The sea begins to crack open, sending slow, echoing booms through the fjord. The world is waking up. Take a deep breath, and let your thoughts drift there to that moment when the ice breaks and the sound of running water returns. It's a sound of renewal, soft but powerful. The settlers stand quietly, listening. They don't speak, because they don't need to. The long silence of winter is ending, and life, once again, begins to move. When the sea finally opens, sails begin to appear again on the horizon. For the Greenland settlers, this moment feels like a return to the world. The sound of the waves against wooden hulls, the shouts of sailors calling from the distance, it's a rare break in the long silence. Trade ships from Iceland or Norway arrive with precious goods, iron tools, fine cloth, grain, and timber that cannot be found in this treeless land. In return, the settlers offer furs, seal oil, and ivory carved from the tusks of walrus. These exchanges are more than just trade. They are connection reminders that the colony is not alone, that someone still remembers them beyond the sea. The settlers welcome the visitors warmly, helping them ashore, listening to their stories, and offering what little comfort they can. For a few days, laughter and conversation fill the air again. The scent of salt and tar mixes with the smoke of fires, and the settlement feels alive. When night falls, the guests gather by the hearths, sharing news from distant lands. They speak of changing rulers, of harvests, of strange new tools being used across the ocean. The Greenlanders listen quietly, their faces lit by firelight. These stories feel like glimpses of another world, one that continues to move while theirs stays still beneath snow and stone. For the settlers, this contact is vital. The ships bring not only supplies, but a sense of purpose, a thread that ties them to the greater world. Without it, their isolation would be complete. But as the years pass, the visits grow fewer, storms in the North Atlantic grow stronger, and voyages that once took weeks now stretch into months, or end in silence. Take a slow breath and picture the scene: a quiet harbor surrounded by cliffs, a handful of ships resting on calm waters, sails fluttering softly in the wind. Men unload crates and barrels, their boots crunching on frozen ground. The air smells of seaweed, tar, and wood smoke. For a moment, this frozen place feels full of life. When the ships prepare to leave, the mood shifts. The settlers stand by the shore, waving as the sails catch the wind. The ships grow smaller, then vanish into the grey horizon. The sound of the sea returns, the endless rhythm they know so well. Once again, the colony is alone. In the days that follow, life returns to its quiet pace. The settlers unpack their traded goods, repair tools, and share the stories they've heard. The children listen wide-eyed to tales of cities, of green fields, of warm summers beyond the ocean. To them, these stories are as magical as the stars above their fjords. Weeks turn into months, and no more ships appear. The settlers wait, as they always do, trusting that when the ice breaks again next summer, sails will return. They build their hopes into the rhythm of the seasons, a quiet faith that connection, however distant, will endure. Sometimes, in the deep of winter, they dream of those ships. They imagine them anchored in calm waters, their wooden hulls gleaming under starlight. The settlers know that somewhere out there, others live and breathe under the same sky. That thought alone brings comfort. Take another slow breath. Feel the stillness between one voyage and the next. The sea, patient and wide, waits for the return of those sails, just as the settlers wait for spring. Their world turns slowly, not in haste, but in quiet expectation. And though the distance between them and the rest of humanity grows each year, hope remains steady as the tide, silent as snow on the mountains. As the decades pass, the bond between Greenland and the outside world begins to fray. The sea that once carried ships of trade and friendship grows colder, harsher, less forgiving. Some years, no ships arrive at all. The settlers begin to realize how fragile their connection truly is, how easily a storm, or a few bad seasons, can turn them from a colony into an island forgotten by time. The last few traders who make the journey speak of changes in the wider world, new routes, shifting priorities, and merchants who no longer see the value in crossing such dangerous seas. Walrus ivory, once precious, has become less sought after. The cost of reaching Greenland outweighs the reward. Slowly, quietly, the flow of ships dwindles to nothing. When the settlers stand on the cliffs, watching the empty horizon, they can almost remember the sound of sails flapping in the wind, the creak of ships as they came to rest in the bay. Now there is only the cry of seabirds and the endless whisper of the waves. They still keep small piles of goods ready, carved ivory, cured hides, neatly packed bundles, as if expecting visitors who never arrive. Take a slow breath and picture that scene, the vast sea stretching endlessly outward, cold and silent, reflecting the grey sky. A single person stands near the edge of a cliff, their cloak fluttering in the wind. Far below, the settlement sleeps under a thin layer of frost. The world feels immense, and the distance between one shore and another feels infinite. Yet, the settlers do not despair. their lives have always been built on endurance, on quiet faith that every winter will pass, and every season will bring what is meant to come. They repair their homes, care for their animals, and keep the traditions that bind them together. They teach their children about the journeys of old, the times when ships brought the sound of voices from far away, and when the world seemed both larger and closer. Still, each generation grows more accustomed to solitude. The younger ones have never seen a foreign ship, never held an iron tool freshly forged in another land. Their world is smaller now, contained within fjords, pastures, and the sky above. To them, the stories of trade and travel sound like distant legends, softened by time. There are moments, though, when the ocean itself seems to whisper of connection. A piece of driftwood might wash ashore, smooth, foreign, carrying the scent of another place. The settlers pick it up, turning it in their hands, wondering how far it has traveled. Even without ships, the sea still brings reminders that they are part of something larger, unseen but real. Take another deep breath. Imagine the rhythm of waves, the cold air brushing against your face, the faint glow of a fading sun. There is peace in this solitude, not loneliness, but acceptance. The settlers have learned to live without waiting, to find comfort in what remains rather than longing for what is lost. By the end of a generation, the idea of trade becomes a memory. The people of Greenland look inward now, to their families, their land, and the quiet faith that sustains them. They still tell the old stories, but not with sadness. Those tales have become lullabies, reminders of who they once were and how they survived. And as the sea freezes once again, the wind carrying only silence across the fjords, life continues, steady, unhurried, unbroken. Their connection to the world may have faded, but the rhythm of their hearts, their work, and their hope still beats on beneath the snow, as calm and certain as the tide that never truly stops returning. The seasons begin to shift in ways the settlers cannot ignore. Summers grow shorter, colder, and less forgiving. The grass that once grew thick enough for hay now struggles to rise from the frozen ground. Rivers stay locked in ice for weeks longer than before, and even the sunlight feels weaker, dimmer, as if the sky itself has grown tired. What the people of Greenland do not yet know is that the world has entered a colder age, a time that will later be called the Little Ice Age. At first, the changes are subtle. A longer frost here, a storm that lasts a little too long there. But slowly, the pattern deepens. Crops that once thrived now fail to ripen before the cold returns. Animals grow thin. Fishing becomes harder as ice closes over the fjords earlier each year. The settlers do what they have always done, adapt, endure, and hope that next year will be kinder. Inside their homes, they speak softly of the strange weather. The elders say the air feels different, heavier. The younger ones only know this new rhythm. They've never felt the warmer summers their parents remember. Each year, they adjust their lives a little more, building thicker walls, storing more fish, cutting what little grass remains for hay. They survive, but each winter takes more effort, more strength, more faith. Take a slow breath and imagine the landscape as it changes. The once green valleys now lie under a thin crust of frost, even in midsummer. The mountains, once distant, seem to creep closer under the growing snow. The wind carries a sharper edge, whispering through the settlements like a quiet warning. Yet still, life continues. The smoke rises from chimneys, animals move through the fields, and people work with quiet determination. The settlers learn to make do with less. They replace cattle with smaller animals that can survive on limited food: goats, sheep, and hardy ponies. They hunt seals more often now, traveling across ice they once feared to cross. They mend every piece of clothing until it cannot be mended again. Every choice becomes a calculation between risk and necessity. But something else changes too, not just the weather, but the feeling of the land itself. The sea, once their friend, grows unpredictable. The currents shift, bringing more ice from the north. The familiar routes between islands vanish beneath frozen walls. Sometimes, the sound of cracking ice echoes across the fjords like thunder. It is beautiful, in a way, but also unsettling, a reminder that nature is both vast and beyond control. Take another deep breath. Feel the cold air in that world, the stillness of it, the weight. Imagine standing at the edge of a frozen shore where once there was water. The silence there isn't empty. It's full of meaning. It tells the settlers that something larger than them has begun, something slow and unstoppable. They pray for warmth, for longer days, for calm seas. But as years pass, their world continues to tighten around them. Trade ships, already rare, now stop coming altogether. The sea ice stretches too far south, trapping any vessel that dares to cross. The settlers begin to understand that help will not come. They are alone now, truly at the edge of the world. Even so, they do not surrender to despair. Their strength is quiet, built on centuries of endurance. They turn inward to family, to work, to the rhythm of survival. The fire in each home burns lower, but it still burns. And though the world outside grows colder with each passing year, their spirit remains steady, as constant as the sea that lies waiting beneath the ice. In the stillness of those winters, life takes on a different shape. There is less talk, less laughter, but more understanding, a kind of peace that comes from knowing that endurance itself is a form of victory. And through that peace, the settlers carry on, one day at a time, as the little ice age quietly tightens its grip around them. By the time another generation grows, the cold is no longer an interruption. It has become the way of life. The settlers have forgotten what true warmth feels like. The summers arrive weak and pale, barely enough to grow thin patches of grass. The sea that once shimmered with silver light now holds ice well into the season of sun. The air itself feels heavier, quieter, and every breath carries the memory of snow. Families gather more closely now. They share everything: food, warmth, silence. A single cow or a small flock of sheep is enough to sustain a household through the long, dark months. The fires burn almost constantly, fed by driftwood and whatever scrap can be spared. Every spark feels like a small defiance against the cold that presses at their walls. Take a slow breath. Picture the smoke curling upward through a small chimney, blending into the grey sky. Outside, frost covers every surface like glass. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of smoke and wool. Life is slower now, not from choice, but from necessity. Even small movements must be deliberate, because every bit of energy is precious. When storms roll in, they no longer come softly. They sweep down from the north with force, burying everything beneath snow and silence. The settlers wait them out without fear. They have no choice. The sound of wind becomes familiar, like an old companion. They know that once it passes, the world will be different again. More snow, less life, but still survivable. Each year, a few farms are left behind. Families pack what they can and move closer to the fjords, where fishing offers the only dependable food source. The outer settlements, once rich with grass and open air, are reclaimed by frost. The old houses stand half buried, silent, their doorways filled with snow. Yet no one calls it an ending. To the settlers, it is just another change in the long rhythm of their lives. The people grow smaller in number but stronger in will. Their tools are worn, their hands rough, their voices steady. They speak less now, conserving their breath as carefully as they conserve their food. There's no time for fear, only for the work that keeps them alive another day. Sometimes the sky clears after a storm, revealing stars sharper and brighter than any torchlight. The settlers step outside to look at them, their breath forming small clouds in the air. In that stillness, there's a strange comfort, a feeling that even though the world has grown colder, it still holds a quiet kind of beauty. Take another breath, slow and easy. Imagine standing there beside them, the crunch of snow beneath your boots, the soft hum of the sea frozen beneath the ice. It's a world stripped of noise, stripped of excess, but not of meaning. Every moment, every breath is part of a quiet perseverance that defines their lives. Years turn into decades, and the cold deepens further still. Trade is a memory, warmth a luxury. The settlers no longer look outward toward the horizon, they look inward, toward the simple acts that keep them human, tending the fire, caring for their kin, whispering stories before sleep. They live as part of the land now, shaped by it and accepted by it. And as the snowdrifts rise higher around their homes, as the sea grows silent beneath the ice, the settlers of Greenland remain small figures against the vastness of nature. They do not fight the cold anymore. They live within it. They breathe it. And in doing so, they write their quiet chapter into history. A story not of conquest or defeat, but of endurance, whispered through frost and time. The winters have grown longer now, and each one feels heavier than the last. The settlers rise each morning to the same pale light, the same sharp wind, the same endless cold pressing against their walls. They no longer speak of the warmth of past summers. It feels like a dream from another lifetime. Survival has become their only rhythm, their only measure of time. Every action, every breath is an effort to hold on. Food has grown scarce. The cattle herds have mostly vanished, replaced by smaller, hardier animals that can survive on little. The settlers rely more on the sea than ever before. They carve holes through thick ice to fish, waiting in silence for hours while frost gathers on their clothing. When the catch is good, it feels like a gift. When it's not, they simply wait again the next day. There is no anger, only endurance. Take a slow breath and imagine that stillness, a white plain of ice stretching endlessly. The faint sound of water beneath, and a single figure sitting beside the hole, breath visible in the cold air. It's not despair that drives them to stay. It's habit, persistence, and the quiet belief that life is still possible, even here. Inside their homes, the fires burn low. The smell of smoke and salt lingers in the air. Dried fish hangs above the hearth, rationed carefully for the weeks ahead. The walls hum faintly with the sound of wind outside, a steady reminder of the frozen world beyond. Children sleep close together for warmth, their dreams shaped by the rhythm of crackling fire and the soft murmur of their parents' voices. The settlers' tools grow dull with time. Iron, once brought by trade ships, is now scarce. They sharpen blades with stone, repair them with patience, and use every resource until it can give no more. Nothing is wasted, not a scrap of fabric, not a piece of driftwood, not even the ashes from the fire, which they mix with snow to clean their hands. Every small act is part of the same quiet battle against the cold. The days are dim, the nights endless. Yet life continues in small ways. Someone hums a tune from memory. A child carves shapes into the frost on the window. The settlers still share soft laughter now and then, like sparks breaking through the dark. Even in this frozen place, warmth exists, not from the fire, but from the closeness of those who endure it together. Take another slow breath. Imagine that glow of firelight flickering across tired faces, faces lined with frost and soot, but calm, patient, and alive. This is not a story of defeat. It is a story of persistence, of quiet bravery without audience or applause. The settlers of Greenland don't fight the cold. They live alongside it, adapting to every challenge it brings. Sometimes the sea offers small blessings: a beached whale, a large catch of fish, a seal caught in the ice, moments of unexpected abundance that feel almost miraculous. They thank the Almighty for these gifts, understanding that survival is not earned by strength alone, but by grace and timing beyond their control. But the balance is fragile. When storms come, they come hard, tearing roofs, freezing livestock, burying homes in snow. The settlers dig tunnels between houses just to reach one another, keeping their small community connected even as the world outside becomes impassable. Their lives have narrowed to the essentials: warmth, food, and the shared comfort of endurance. Through it all, they remain calm. No cries for rescue, no cries of despair. Just the quiet sound of work, the scrape of a shovel, the crackle of firewood, the steady rhythm of survival. In the stillness of this frozen world, even the smallest act, lighting a flame, catching a fish, whispering a story, becomes sacred. By the time another winter arrives, the settlers know exactly what to expect, and yet it never feels easier. The cold bites deeper now, the snow falls earlier, and the light fades faster. The fjords freeze solid before the last leaves have fallen. Each morning they wake to the sound of the wind pressing against their homes, and each night they listen to it sing across the mountains like a haunting lullaby. It is both familiar and endless. The food stores shrink with every passing week. Dried fish and seal meat are divided carefully, weighed and measured, every meal a decision between today and tomorrow. The people eat slowly, grateful for each bite, knowing that waste is a luxury they cannot afford. Hunger becomes a quiet presence, not loud or desperate, but constant, like a shadow that never leaves. Take a slow breath and imagine that feeling, a stillness where time itself seems to move slower, where every small act carries meaning. The settlers don't see their struggle as tragedy, they see it as life. To live here is to adapt, to find beauty even in hardship, to accept that comfort is rare but peace can still exist. Their clothing is patched and repaired again and again. Furs, worn thin by years of use, are layered together with scraps of wool. Boots are stuffed with moss to keep out the cold. They make do with what the land gives, shaping survival out of fragments. Each item tells a story, not of fashion, but of persistence. Outside, the world has gone quiet. The birds have fled south, and the sea lies beneath a solid sheet of ice. The sky often glows faintly at night, pale green ribbons shifting across the darkness. The settlers watch these northern lights in silence, their breath visible in the cold. The sight fills them with something wordless, not joy, not fear, but awe. Even in hardship, the world can still be beautiful. Sometimes, travelers from distant settlements arrive, thin and weary, searching for warmth. They bring stories of abandoned farms, of families who moved inland or vanished altogether. The Greenlanders share what they can: a bowl of soup, a place by the fire, a night of rest. In a world that has grown colder, kindness has become a kind of strength. Take another deep breath. Picture the quiet hum of conversation around a low fire, the gentle clinking of wooden bowls, the wind outside brushing against the walls. It's a fragile peace, but it's real, the kind of peace that only comes from shared endurance. By now, the settlers have stopped marking years. Time feels circular, blending one season into the next. The children who once played by the fjord are grown now, hardened by necessity. They no longer dream of faraway lands, only of calm seas and full nets. The world beyond Greenland feels like a story told long ago, half remembered and fading with each retelling. Yet, even here, life continues to find its rhythm. A child's laughter breaks through the silence. A candle flickers in the darkness. A mother hums softly as she mends a torn cloak. These moments, small, fragile, human, carry more power than the endless winter outside. They remind the settlers, and perhaps us too, that even in the coldest corners of history, warmth can still be found, and so they continue, not out of defiance, but out of quiet faith. Their struggle is not against the land, but alongside it. Every sunrise, every breath, every flame that still burns, all of it becomes an act of hope. For the settlers of Greenland, survival itself has become their way of honoring life, one silent day at a time. When spring finally arrives, it does not come with celebration, only relief. The snow melts slowly, and the earth beneath it is still hard, still cold, but alive. The settlers step outside after months of darkness and feel the weak sun on their faces. The sound of dripping water and the smell of wet soil fill the air. It is not warmth as they remember it, but it is enough to remind them that the world still turns. They begin to move again, fixing fences, clearing paths, checking the animals that survived the winter. Some look out across the fjord, hoping to see sails on the horizon, but the sea remains empty, choked with drifting ice. There are no visitors, no trade, no messages from the outside world. The settlers are now completely alone, their lives bound to the rhythm of the land and the mercy of the seasons. Take a slow breath. Imagine that quiet scene, boots sinking into thawing earth, the hiss of melting snow, the distant cry of a bird returning for the first time in months. The settlers do not smile often, but in small ways they show gratitude. They do not expect life to be easy. They only ask for the strength to continue. Archaeologists who would one day uncover these settlements found no grand signs of disaster, no ruins of fire, no traces of violence. Instead, they found silence, abandoned homes, tools left neatly in place, doors closed as if someone had meant to return. It is as if the people simply vanished, leaving behind a quiet echo of their lives. Inside those homes, everything tells a story. A comb carved from bone, a fragment of cloth, the remains of a meal left half-eaten. These are not the marks of sudden flight, but of slow fading, a community that endured for centuries, gradually growing smaller until one day there was no one left to keep the fires burning. Take another breath and imagine walking through one of those empty houses. The air is still. Dust glows in the faint light from the doorway. You can almost hear the crackle of a fire that once warmed this room, the murmur of voices that have long since gone quiet. Nothing dramatic happened here, only time, patience, and the quiet erosion of life on the edge of the world. For the settlers, the end likely came without realizing it. A family leaving one winter and not returning the next. A farm abandoned after a harsh season. A child growing up and deciding to sail away, seeking a gentler shore. Each departure left a gap that was never filled, until the silence became complete. They may have looked out at the sea, wondering if anyone would ever find them. They may have thought about the places they left behind, the lands their ancestors came from, but the ocean is wide, and memory fades quickly in the cold. Greenland became both home and tomb, a place of endurance that slowly turned to stillness. Take another slow breath. Feel that quietness settle around you, not sadness, but calm acceptance. The story of these settlers was never about defeat. It was about resilience, the will to survive where few could, and the peace that comes when struggle becomes second nature. Their voices may have faded, but their presence lingers still in the ruins, in the frost, in the long echo of wind over stone. Centuries later, when explorers and archaeologists arrived, they found the traces of those final years frozen in time. Walls still standing, roofs half collapsed beneath the snow, and small everyday objects scattered where they had once been used. There were no signs of panic, no struggle, only the quiet, almost tender ending of a community that had slowly dwindled away. It was not destruction that claimed them, but the calm, steady passage of time. Inside one of the abandoned houses, a wooden spoon was found resting on a table, untouched for centuries. In another, a fragment of fabric still clung to a wall where it once hung to keep out the cold. Even the bones of animals, left neatly in piles, spoke of careful hands and quiet lives. These small details tell a story more powerful than any grand monument, the story of ordinary people who endured until they could endure no more. Take a slow breath. Imagine walking through that silent settlement. The air is sharp and still, the ground uneven beneath your feet. Snow presses into the cracks of stone walls, and the only sound is the soft crunch of your steps. It feels as if the settlers have just stepped away, as if, any moment now, someone might return to tend the fire again. For centuries, the ruins lay untouched, visited only by the wind and the passing seasons. Grass grew over the paths where people once walked. Birds nested in the empty homes, their calls echoing through places that once held laughter. Nature reclaimed what was left, not cruelly, but gently, the way it reclaims everything, with patience and silence. As the explorers studied the remains, they realized the truth. The settlers had not vanished in an instant. They had faded, slowly, gracefully, quietly, into the land they had once tamed. Each winter claimed a few more lives. Each summer brought a little less strength. And one year, perhaps without anyone noticing, the fires in Greenland simply went out. Take another deep breath. Feel the calm that comes with that thought. Not sorrow, but stillness. Their disappearance was not a tragedy of violence or ruin. It was the closing of a long, quiet story. A story that began with hope, endured through hardship, and ended as gently as snow falling into the sea. Even now, the land remembers them. The fjords still echo with the wind that once filled their sails. The stones of their homes still hold the warmth of the fires they built. And when the northern lights move across the sky, their soft glow feels like a memory, not of loss, but of peace. The settlers of Greenland did not leave behind kings or empires. They left something quieter, a reminder that endurance itself is a kind of legacy. To survive in such a place, for so long, was an act of quiet courage. And in the silence they left behind, that courage still speaks. So as you imagine that frozen world, let it drift softly in your mind, the snow-covered roofs, the whisper of the sea beyond the ice, the ghostly outline of farms now returned to earth. Their story ends not with a cry, but with a sigh, a peaceful surrender to time. whispered into the cold wind that still carries their memory. Over time, nature began to reclaim everything the settlers had built. The walls that once held warmth and laughter grew soft with moss. The roofs collapsed beneath layers of snow, and grass crept over the paths where footsteps once echoed. The sea, which had carried life to the colonies, now erased their harbors with ice and tide. The land was patient, and little by little, it folded the traces of human life back into its quiet rhythm. The fjords grew still. Where once there were boats tied to wooden posts, there was only water reflecting grey skies. The sounds of hammers, voices, and animals were replaced by the sigh of wind through empty valleys. The world that had been carved out of stone and willpower slowly became part of the landscape again. There was no violence in this ending, only peace. The kind of peace that comes when the earth decides to rest. Take a slow breath and imagine that stillness. The cold air pressing softly against your face, the scent of sea salt and earth, the sun low in the sky, shining faintly on the ruins. It's not a sad place, not truly. It's simply quiet, a quiet that feels eternal. The settlers may have vanished, but their presence lingers in every stone, in every shadow. Seasons continue to pass. In summer, wildflowers grow through cracks in the old walls. In winter, the snow buries everything, smoothing the ground until it looks untouched. The land keeps its secrets well. Those who pass through might never guess that an entire community once lived here, that lives were built, families raised, dreams carried through storms and silence. As time goes on, the names of those settlers fade from memory. Their farms are swallowed by earth, their stories scattered by wind. Yet, what remains is not emptiness. It's something gentler, a sense of belonging, as if the land itself remembers them in its own quiet way. Take another breath, slow and deep. Picture the faint sound of the sea returning at dusk, waves brushing against stone, a soft rhythm that has outlasted every human voice. It's the same sea that brought them here, the same one that watched them live and fade. And in that rhythm, their story continues, not as a tragedy, but as part of the natural turning of the world. Every now and then, a traveler or a hunter might stumble upon one of the ruins, a wall still standing, a piece of carved wood half buried in the soil. They pause for a moment, feeling the weight of the past in the air. The silence feels thick, but not empty. It's the kind of silence that holds memory, not absence. Even the wind seems softer here, as if it remembers how to move gently across the stones. The valleys carry echoes of a time when people once spoke, worked, and dreamed in this place. The ghosts that remain are not restless, they are at peace, folded into the calm rhythm of the landscape. Take a slow breath. Feel that same calm settle in your chest. Imagine standing in that valley, surrounded by quiet beauty, the ruins glowing faintly in the last light of day. There's no sorrow here, only understanding. The settlers came with hope, lived with endurance, and returned to the land with grace. And so, the island breathes again, the wind, the water, and the earth moving as one. The story of the Greenland settlers doesn't end in loss, it ends in rest. Nature has taken them home, centuries pass, and the land continues its quiet work. The ruins of the old farms sink deeper into the earth, covered by grass, snow, and time. The stones that once formed walls now lie scattered, softened by lichen and frost. The fjords remain unchanged, cold, reflective, and endlessly patient. The people are gone, but their story rests here, layered in silence beneath the northern sky. When the first explorers from later centuries arrive, they find almost nothing at first glance, just a faint shape in the landscape, a pattern too regular to be nature's design. They brush away the soil, revealing the corners of rooms, hearths, and tools left where they last were used. The air is still, as if holding its breath to welcome the return of human curiosity. Take a slow breath and imagine that moment. Gloved hands brushing against stone that hasn't been touched for hundreds of years. The cold seeps through the fingers. The sound of wind fills the distance, and for a brief second, the past feels close again. These explorers do not disturb graves or treasures. They uncover fragments of ordinary life, a world built from simplicity and faith in endurance. They find animal bones beside the remains of old cooking fires, shards of pottery blackened with soot, and small carved pieces of ivory, all reminders that life here once pulsed with purpose. It is not a story of glory, but of quiet resilience. The Greenland settlers did not fade because they were weak, but because the world around them changed faster than they could. As more time passes, their story becomes part of history's deeper hum, a soft thread that connects us to what it means to endure. Every piece of evidence, every stone unearthed, speaks not of failure, but of the beauty in persistence. Even as the cold reclaimed them, they continued living, adapting, hoping. Their story was not about loss, but about what it means to live fully, even in the face of silence. Take another deep breath. Picture the fjords under a silver light, the sea moving slowly beneath thin ice. The air carries no voices now, only the rhythm of the wind against rock. Yet, if you listen closely, you can almost hear it, the faint echo of work, laughter, the steady beat of life that once filled this quiet place. In that soundless world, everything that once was has blended back into the land. The homes, the tools, the footsteps, all of it now part of Greenland's vast memory. The story has not vanished. It has only become quieter, woven into the landscape like a melody too soft for words. When the wind moves through the valleys, it carries their presence in its flow. The sound is calm, steady, almost like breathing. It reminds us that no human effort is ever truly lost. Every act of survival, every flicker of hope, becomes part of something greater, the ongoing story of the earth itself. And as night falls across the empty fjords, the last light of the sun fades into blue. The world turns cold again, and the stars appear, the same stars the settlers once looked upon after long days of work. In that shared sky, their memory lingers, quiet and endless, carried gently by the wind that never stops moving across the sea. Centuries after the last fires went out, new travelers came to Greenland's frozen coast. They did not come seeking riches or conquest, only understanding. The first explorers stood among the ruins, brushing snow from ancient stones, wondering what kind of lives had once been lived here. Around them, silence stretched for miles, broken only by the faint hum of the wind moving through the fjord. It felt as if the land itself was holding its breath, waiting to tell its story. They found traces of careful work, tools shaped by steady hands, fragments of pottery, bones arranged neatly by long-gone families. Nothing was chaotic or rushed. It was as though the settlers had simply stepped away for a moment, never to return. The explorers could almost imagine the sound of voices, the warmth of fire, the quiet rhythm of daily life that once filled these valleys. Take a slow breath and picture that scene, the contrast of human touch against nature's patience. Every discovery, every uncovered object felt like a whisper from the past. The explorers realized that these people had not disappeared suddenly. They had faded gradually as the world around them shifted beyond what they could endure. Their story wasn't one of failure, but of balance, of people who lived with the land until the land finally reclaimed them. Over time, archaeologists began to piece together their story like fragments of a song. The homes, the fields, the tools, all spoke of adaptation and endurance. The settlers were farmers, fishers, craftsmen. They built lives with care, faith, and quiet discipline. Even in the smallest details, a comb carved from bone, a spindle made smooth by touch, there was a sense of persistence, of finding beauty in survival. As each layer of soil was brushed away, history revealed itself not as a grand tale of battle or discovery, but as something deeply human. A record of lives lived in rhythm with the seasons. A reminder that history is not always loud. Sometimes it hums softly beneath the snow, waiting to be heard by those patient enough to listen. Take another breath. Imagine standing among the ruins as the light fades. The air is cold, the sea murmurs in the distance, and the stones glow faintly in the twilight. There's a feeling of stillness here, not emptiness, but peace. The Greenland settlers left no monuments, no legends carved in stone, yet their quiet endurance has outlasted time itself. As the explorers leave the site, they look back one last time. Behind them, the landscape stretches wide and endless, the ruins blending into the earth once more. The wind rises, carrying the soft sound of the sea. It feels almost like a farewell, gentle, dignified, and eternal. Even now, centuries later, that silence remains. The same snow drifts across the same hills. The same stars appear in the same sky. The land remembers them, not in sorrow, but in calm acceptance. The story of the Greenland colonies is not one of disappearance, but of return. They came from the earth, lived with it, and, in time, became part of it again. Take one more slow breath. Let the thought settle that all things, no matter how distant or forgotten, leave their traces. Every act of life, every whisper of hope, remains somewhere, waiting to be found. In the quiet of Greenland's frozen coast, the memory of those settlers still lingers, not in words, but in silence. In the years that followed, researchers continued to study what the Greenland settlers left behind. With each discovery, a clearer picture emerged, not of sudden collapse, but of gradual retreat. The people did not vanish overnight. They adapted until adaptation was no longer possible. The colder climate, the fading trade routes, the shifting sea ice, all worked together, not as enemies, but as slow, unyielding forces that shaped their fate. The bones found in the soil told quiet stories. Some showed signs of hard labor and hunger, others of old age, proof that even in their final generations, life continued. Children were born, people grew old, communities endured for as long as the land allowed. There was no moment of defeat, only a long, gentle fading into the stillness of nature. Take a slow breath and imagine that stillness. The faint sound of wind brushing across snow, the echo of the sea trapped beneath ice. It's the same sound the settlers once heard as they looked out across the horizon, knowing the world beyond was too far to reach. That same calm, endless rhythm remains timeless and unbroken. When modern explorers uncovered these remains, they spoke often of the peace they felt there. Not sorrow, not tragedy, peace. The kind that comes from knowing that everything has found its place. The settlers had built their homes at the edge of the world, lived full lives, and then returned quietly to the earth that sustained them. It was, in its own way, a perfect circle. The archaeologists who walked those valleys described the landscape as hauntingly calm. They found no graves marked with grandeur, no signs of wealth or conquest, only simplicity, stones arranged with care, traces of hearth fires long gone cold. Each discovery felt like uncovering the heartbeat of history, slow and steady, still echoing through the frost. Take another deep breath. Picture the explorers standing there at dusk, surrounded by silence and snow. Their footsteps fade quickly, swallowed by the wind. Behind them, the ruins remain untouched once more. The world settles back into its ancient rhythm, as if nothing had ever disturbed it. The story of the Greenland colonies might seem small compared to the empires and wars of history, but perhaps that is what makes it meaningful. It reminds us that most of history is made not by kings or conquerors, but by quiet people, those who plant, build, endure, and hope. Their legacy isn't written in books. It's written in the land, in the way time holds their memory without judgment. Even now, when the northern lights sweep across the sky, their glow reaches those same valleys. The colors dance over the frozen sea, reflecting on the stones that once formed homes. It's as if the earth itself remembers and chooses to honor them, not with sound or monument, but with light. Take a final deep breath. Imagine standing there beneath that light, surrounded by silence and the whisper of the wind. You are connected to them in this moment, to their endurance, to their patience, to their peace. Their story did not vanish. It simply became part of the world around us. And as the night settles over Greenland once more, the sea turns calm, the stars steady. The settlers' memory remains, not as ghosts, but as gentle reminders that even the quietest lives leave ripples that never truly fade. Night falls gently over the frozen coast. The sea glows faintly beneath the stars, its surface still and dark. In the silence, it feels as if time itself has stopped, as though the wind and the waves are holding the memory of everything that came before. This is Greenland as it stands today, vast, cold, and timeless, carrying the whispers of those who once called it home. The story of the Viking settlers has become a kind of echo, carried softly through the centuries. It speaks not of conquest or discovery, but of endurance, the quiet strength of people who lived on the edge of the world. They were not heroes in shining armor, nor explorers seeking fame. They were families, farmers, and builders, trying to create a life in one of the harshest places on earth. Take a slow breath and imagine standing where they once stood. The same wind touches your face. The same stars fill the endless sky. The same sound of distant waves hums across the ice. Though their homes have vanished, their presence lingers in the air, like the faint warmth left behind after a fire burns out. Their story reminds us of something deeply human, that even in isolation, life continues with meaning. They loved, worked, and dreamed, just as we do. Their hands shaped the same earth that now lies still beneath the frost. Though centuries separate us, the quiet rhythm of their existence feels close, like a heartbeat just beneath the surface of the snow. As you breathe slowly, you can almost hear it, the soft echoes of their daily life, the ring of a hammer against stone, the murmur of voices over the sound of wind, the gentle lowing of animals in their pens. All of it long gone, and yet somehow still alive in the memory of the land. Greenland remembers, not through words, but through silence, a silence so deep it feels sacred. The northern lights rise slowly across the sky, green and gold ribbons drifting above the frozen sea. The light dances over the mountains, over the fjords, over the forgotten settlements that sleep beneath the snow. It's as though the heavens themselves are brushing the past with color, reminding the world that even lost stories still shimmer in the dark. Take another deep breath. Feel the calm settle in your chest. This story, like the wind, was never meant to end with noise or certainty. The settlers' disappearance wasn't a tragedy, it was a transformation, a return to the rhythm of nature. Their lives melted back into the landscape, like snow returning to the sea. In the long history of the world, they are but a brief moment, yet, in that moment, they showed what it means to live with courage and humility. They faced the impossible and turned it into a way of life. They built homes where no one thought life could last, and though they are gone, their quiet strength remains in every breath of wind, every ripple of water, every spark of light in the northern sky. Perhaps that is why their story endures. Not because it is loud or grand, but because it feels human, gentle, fleeting, and real. Their lives remind us that every existence, no matter how distant or small, leaves an imprint. A whisper in time, soft but eternal, carried onward by the earth itself. So tonight, as you rest, imagine the sea again, vast and calm beneath the stars. The world is quiet now, but not empty. It hums softly with the weight of history, with all the lives that came before, and all the ones yet to come. In that quiet, the settlers of Greenland still drift, like snow on the wind, peaceful and everlasting. As the night deepens, the last traces of daylight fade behind the icy cliffs. The sea becomes one wide mirror of darkness, touched by the glow of the stars. The world feels endless here, ancient and patient, a place where silence carries the weight of every story ever lived. The settlers of Greenland are gone, but their memory breathes quietly in this frozen air, where the wind moves like a soft voice across the snow. The story of their lives is not one of failure, but of quiet faith. They believed in the promise of the land, in the rhythm of work, in the hope that tomorrow would always come. Even when the sea froze and the ships stopped arriving, they remained. Their courage was not loud, it was steady, calm, the kind that endures without recognition. That is why their story lingers. It's not about how they disappeared, but how long they held on. Take a slow breath and imagine the world they left behind. The faint orange glow of a hearth, the outline of mountains against a dim horizon, the sound of the ocean beneath thick ice. Every detail feels suspended in time. A quiet reminder that history doesn't vanish, it simply changes form, turning from life to memory, from voice to wind. Now, as centuries stretch between their time and ours, the land remains. The ice shifts, the sea moves, and the stars keep their silent watch. And if you listen carefully, in the calm of the night, you might still hear them, not their words, but their endurance. It's there in the rhythm of the waves, in the pulse of the earth, in the whisper of the Arctic wind that never truly stops. Take another deep breath. Let that image settle in your mind, the soft light of the northern sky, the world still and vast. There's peace in their ending, a peace that belongs to all things that once lived fully and returned to the earth with grace. The settlers of Greenland did not fade into nothing. They became part of something greater, the long, patient story of time itself. And as you rest tonight, remember this: even the quietest lives leave echoes. The strength to endure, the will to hope, the choice to live gently within the world, these are the legacies that never disappear. They drift forward through centuries, reaching us in moments like this one, where the past feels close enough to touch. So breathe slowly. Let the sound of the sea fill the quiet around you. Imagine the snow falling lightly over the ruins, the stars glimmering above the frozen fjords. The story has ended, but the calm remains, a stillness that asks for nothing more than rest. Thank you for joining me tonight, and for walking through this forgotten corner of history. If you've enjoyed this quiet journey through time, I invite you to subscribe and return next time. There's always another forgotten story waiting for you. Next time, we'll travel somewhere warmer, deep into the heart of ancient jungles, to uncover another mystery from the past. Why did the Mayan civilization fade into the jungle? Until then, may your night be calm, your dreams gentle, and your rest as deep as the silence that now settles over Greenland.